and the people who probably saw the title and went, I gotta see what this thing's about. And then the folks who probably thought, what kind of a title is that for a serious, professional, graduate-level master's thesis? Simply put, there is no better way to summarize the opera Pantsrole than that. A woman performing the role of a man in an opera. So quite literally, putting on the pants to dress as a male character. But let's back up for a second. What is a trouser role, and why do so many exist in opera? Before the trouser role was developed, many operas featured roles performed by a castrato. A castrato was a male singer who was castrated before puberty. And without testosterone to alter the vocal cords, these men had the range and vocal quality of a treble voice, such as a soprano, mezzo-soprano, or contralto. The practice of training castrati began because very few women were allowed to perform music in the early 15th century, and composers in the Baroque period wanted a pure, high vocal quality for many roles identifying as male. Roles from operas such as Rinaldo by Handel and Orfeo ed Euridice by Gluck all had the title role performed by a castrato. In the 19th century, when social attitudes began to change and the world realized that maybe, just maybe, castration was not the best nor the most reliable and safe practice out there. The popularity of the castrati waned and audiences began to feel discomfort when they saw a castrato on stage, but they still wanted the sound of the castrati. And although it wasn't unheard of for women to take place of a castrato if none were available, the first male role written with a female voice in mind was created in the 17th century by Handel in his opera Giulio, Cesare. The character Sesto, Caesar's best friend, was created for a woman's voice, not originally created for a castrato. Pantsroles began to emerge and the castrato slowly became extinct, letting women perform as young boys, princely young men, kings, lovers, and villains. However, there was one glaring issue with this switch. Women may have had the vocal range to perform castrato roles, but they were not born as a man. They had dressed as a girl, they had been treated by society as a girl, and had grown up as a girl. Many spent their childhood learning to keep their physical gestures close to their bodies and face the societal pressure to behave and present themselves in a way opposite of men. And as someone who has always been tall and possessed a strong, low vocal range, I have frequently been cast as the opposite sex. Heck, at 15 years old, the very first musical I performed was A Christmas Carol, and I was cast as Bob Cratchit. But little did I know this would start my obsession with gender bending in theater. However, as much fun as I had performing as a man, I remember receiving one consistent note from the director. One note that I have received even as I've grown as a performer. You're acting too feminine. This critique often came with the subtext that there was a clear line of what it meant to be masculine and what it meant to be feminine. However, whenever I asked, how do I act more masculine, I received a confusing, open-ended response which left me struggling to perform these roles. Therefore, I began asking myself the same question. How do I act masculine? What are the different types of masculinity? And most importantly, what could I do to help myself and other performers prepare trouser roles? My first thought was to put together a compilation of various performers and highlight their differences in character interpretation. But that wasn't helping me get a sense of how to build a character. I was just copying what the performer was doing, and I wanted to perform as Bailey Bovenschen, not Bailey Bovenschen copying Joyce DiDonato. And what happens when there are no resources for a character? Where can I find resources to help me create trouser roles featured in operas not performed as often? And with the opera world constantly changing and recreating new interpretations of characters in modern settings, what can we do to help opera performers adapt alongside these changes? I realized that what I needed was a guide. Not an in-depth guide, because there are too many pantsroles and frankly we only have an hour. But a place for performers to start. A tool that could help seasoned performers, beginners, or those curious about pantsroles discover these characters along with the types of masculinity they portray. So I created this, a database with every single castrato, voice soprano, and pantsrole that has ever existed. After I explain what to expect from this database and how to use it, I'll have a QR code posted at the end of this presentation so anyone who wishes to have access to it may do so. When I began creating this database, I made sure I had a solid base by listing each role. I listed the character name, the opera they're featured in, and the composer. This was a good start, but it wasn't quite the guide I was aiming for. The guide still didn't tell me who this character was, nor did it tell me how to discover anything about them. My next step was adding the era the opera was from and the language it was sung in. Although it was easy to identify the era and language of the opera by knowing the composer, I still thought it would be a useful addition for audition purposes. I've attended many opera auditions that requested singers to prepare multiple arias from multiple eras, stated to have 2 pieces prepared with one before 1750, one after, and requested arias in specific languages. This is a quick way for performers to see which style of aria they would encounter without needing to listen to it. The next category I added was the Fach of the Pantsrole. I didn't originally have this in the database because I was under the impression that all trouser roles were performed either by contraltos or mezzo-sopranos. However, not only is this false, but there is at least one of every single treble Fach present in Pantsroles. There are even coloratura soprano roles that I could only ever dream of performing, so for all my high-voiced ladies out there, you too can be a man. So, the additional notes section was added as kind of a disclaimer for certain roles. It labeled any roles that were originally created for castrati and voice sopranos, as well as roles that were originally written as pantsroles, but are often rewritten and then cast for tenors. This way, they still have a place in the database while letting you know this role might not be cast as a pantsrole depending on who was directing the opera. And after that was done, in came the most gratifying, yet most tedious section, listing every single aria. I created this database not only to be a guide for masculinity, but also to be a means for performers to discover new pantsroles. Also, I've attached a link to a YouTube video of a live staged performance of nearly every aria listed. This provides an example of how to portray each character. That being said, some of these operas are so rarely performed, or simply have no staged recordings, that a few of them only have audio available. And now for the last and most important section, the archetype. Once upon a time, in an undergraduate acting class, which was really only a year and a half ago, I was given a book called Acting in Musical Theater, written by Joe Deere and Rocco Dalvera. And not to be overdramatic, but it changed my life. Or at least changed the way I approached acting. There are hundreds of great exercises to learn from, but one method I've used for every single character I have studied is playing with archetypes. The book describes archetypes as physical and vocal behaviors related to a strong physiological and emotional predisposition. An example of this archetype is the trickster, whose goal is to fool those in authority and to make them look stupid in public. It goes on to list variations on this model in almost every period and style of drama. In film, the trickster is Bugs Bunny. In television, he is Bart Simpson. And in the musical theater, he would be Harold Hill in The Music Man and Freddie in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. And although each of those characters are different, they each share a common archetypal root. The book then provided an exercise that used archetypes. It called for a performer to sing a piece they were currently working on, have a partner call out different archetypes, and then the performer react to their partner's suggestion. The very first time I tried this exercise, it was pretty amazing, because I never realized how quickly I could embody a character from a simple archetype. My partner yelled out ingenue, and I immediately made princess hands and looked wistfully out into the distance. Or my partner yelled out evil hag, and I hunched my back, pretended I held a cane, and gave myself a gravelly witch voice. But when I remembered that exercise, I began looking through the male archetypes in the book, and I thought, what if I could apply this technique to opera trouser roles? If I could embody a character that quickly with female archetypes, why couldn't I do the same for masculine pantsroles that I had such a hard time performing? If I could label a pantsrole with an archetype, I could essentially provide an easy way to label the type of masculinity that the character represented. Just as the book listed variations of archetypes in different forms of media, I could do the same for pantsroles. The archetype would lay the foundation of the character, and then, through the performer's own work, they could find the specific characteristics and time period attributes the character possessed. With this in mind, I've prepared 4 arias, each representing a different male archetype to demonstrate for the base for creating a character. For our first example, I thought it would be good to explore Cherubino's character from Mozart's Le Nozze di Figaro. Cherubino's second aria, Voi che sapete, was the first aria I and many other mezzos received due to its simple yet deceptively challenging melody. Because it was my first aria, I had no idea how to play this character, despite being the same age as Cherubino, and that's because this aria is the quintessential depiction of a boy going through puberty. And frankly, As a cis girl, I didn't experience puberty the same way boys did. And after watching the opera and studying this character, it was very obvious that Cherubino was going to fit the bill for the lovesick teen boy archetype. Or maybe more accurately, the hormonal teen boy archetype. But after identifying the character's archetype, the next step was to find similar examples in other forms of media, just as the trickster archetype could be traced through cartoons, movies, and TV shows. Examples allow performers to gain inspiration from other male characters without completely copying another Pantsrole performer. So here are some clips from some of my favorite examples.
Please don't say you suddenly fall anymore. That line is so last semester.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's not it. I'm Danny. Troy.
Yeah, me too. I mean, not your mom. My mom. And dad. I'll call you tomorrow. What are you doing here? I thought you were going back to Australia.
We have to change of plans.
I can't. That's cool, baby. I mean, what's that?
Danny?
That's my name. Don't wear it out.
What's wrong with you?
What's the matter with me, baby? What's the matter with you?
Jackpot! High five! Don't leave me hanging. Differ!
What? Yes.
Aren't you gonna get in on this?
I don't really get it.
Bring her on in!
Good times.
Uh-oh.
What?
Somebody's in love!
Yeah, right. I just think Wendy's cool, okay? It's not like I lay awake at night thinking about her.
With these examples in mind, our next step is to think about the traits they possess. How do they stand, talk, walk, and how do they interact with others and interact with their environment? In general, kids try to make themselves appear older for multiple reasons. They want acceptance from adults, they want to fit in with their peers, and honestly, they're just trying to find themselves. Specifically, though, with straight teenage boys in love, they want to look cool and impress their girlfriend. To do this, they often try and copy the men in their lives. When thinking about this trait, consider the men your character looks up to. What gestures do these men make? What do these men do to make other men take them seriously? How do these men act around women, and what actions seem to make women fall for them? And with all those stances, gestures, and vocabulary in mind, the next step is to portray those traits as awkwardly as possible. As a cringy teenager who is trying to look cool for his girlfriend, they are going to fail at copying their older mentors. And as a performer, you want the same secondhand embarrassment you felt from watching Danny Zuko copy his friend's mannerisms. Hey, baby, it's all cool, rockin' and rollin'. Now, how your character reacts to women is one of the main driving forces behind this archetype. And as an actor, you should be keenly aware of your character's interactions with the women you share the stage with. For instance, how would your character react when the woman of his affections is on stage with him? How nervous is he around women? Does he blush or sweat? And does he seem anxious, start to mess with the shirt? Does he try to make himself appear more mature when women are in the area? And how is his voice starting to change? When he's nervous, does his voice crack? When he's around his crush, does his voice crack even worse? And lastly...
Hold on, wait, she's looking right at me. But you've got to present yourself to her, okay? Broad shoulders, strong stance, your legs are going down into the ground, right? Where are you leading from? My hips? Or...
guess we're talking about this. And as embarrassing as it might be, and as much as we might not want to think about it, there is an extra appendage we women need to compensate for when performing as men. First of all, this will affect the way you walk and stand. Even just being aware of the area below your waist will naturally square the way you walk and make your stance a bit wider. And secondly, this will affect the way you sit. It's natural for us women to cross our legs when we sit because we don't have to leave room for anything. So ladies, this is giving you full permission to manspread. It will immediately read as more masculine if you do so. And lastly, as I mentioned before, I didn't go through puberty the same way boys did, and I may have had to worry about a lot of things during that time, but I didn't have to worry about my nether region acting up when my hormones were going wild. And as Miss Joyce DiDonato said, it is not intentional, it's just what happens. And with that being said, this does bring up a point performers need to be aware of, and that is we are depicting archetypes, not stereotypes. An archetype provides the groundwork for a character, while a stereotype oversimplifies a character and leaves no room for growth or character building. It dumbs down a character to their traits and nothing else. And we want Cherubino to read to the audience as a teenager who is going through an awkward time in his life. He's not a pervert. Once again, it's not intentional, it's just what happens when you're a boy going through puberty. Now that we have a base for our character from our archetype, examples, and traits, we can move on to the specifics of who Cherubino is and how he would act. Cherubino's very first entrance solidifies his whole character. He bursts into Susanna's workroom and says he's been caught by the Count fooling around with the gardener's daughter. And Susanna is one of the Countess's maid, who is like a sister to Cherubino. They tease each other, rile each other up, and tell each other everything. And I mean everything. You see, Susanna knows about Cherubino's little infatuation with the Countess, and she constantly teases him about it. Cherubino then tells her that he is in love with every woman he sees, and he is obsessed with these new feelings, that he writes a very sweet yet kind of embarrassing love song about love. He asks any woman who will listen to help him figure out what love is, how at one moment he's on fire while he's freezing the next, how he shakes and trembles without knowing why, how he feels like he's going to die one moment, but at the same time it's kind of nice. And then Cherubino makes the mistake of handing that very embarrassing love song to his basically sister Susanna, who will absolutely use this against him later. We arrive in Act 2, with Susanna and the Countess devising a plan to catch the Count acting unfaithfully. And that's when Susanna mentions the love song to her. The Countess he's in love with. And what's worse, when Cherubino bursts into the scene, they ask him to sing it for them. They ask him to sing the love song that he wrote in front of his crush. And then Susanna not only encourages it, but picks up a guitar and starts playing to accompany him. During this aria, there are two women in the room with Cherubino. First, Susanna, his surrogate sister, who he probably wants to punch in the face right now. And second, the most beautiful woman he has ever laid eyes on and whom he is helplessly in love with. It's a recipe for a very funny disaster. And with that scene set up, here is Voi che sapete.
Oh,
sospiro e gemo, senza voler, palpito e tremo, senza sapere, non trovo pace, non diremi, amor mi piace, languir così. Voi che sapete che cosa è amor, sì o no nel cor, doni vedete, sì o no nel cor, doni vedete, sì o no nel cor. On to our next archetype, who is a very similar age to Carabino, but he doesn't quite care about women as much. He is often a page boy to an important count or countess, or the servant to a king. This servant may attend to important people, but he thinks he holds the same authority as them. In this case, Stefano, Romeo's page from Gounod's Romeo et Juliet, is a perfect example of the immature sidekick archetype.
Prepared to be challenged by a superhero. I was not expecting children.
I'm not children.
Objectively, you are.
This team needs a leader. And it's you. Dude, you're a 13-year-old kid who ducked out on us without a word. And you're immature, Big C. You wore cover first chance you got, Jeff. You don't even have superpowers. Neither does Batman. You're not Batman. Closest thing we've got. Hi, I'm Robin. I'm Robin. You better leave.
Hey, I got my eye on you.
Water dry.
Sorry, ladies, didn't mean to interrupt your dance lesson. I was just looking for somewhere to get a little workout.
Well, you're in the right place. I didn't know you were friends with the Avatar.
It's alright. I mean, normally I'd hold a grudge, but seeing as you guys are a bunch of girls, I'll make an exception. True, but don't feel bad. After all, I'm the best warrior in my village.
Wow, best warrior, huh? In your whole village. Maybe you'd be kind enough to give us a little demonstration.
Oh, well, I mean, now, this may be a little tough, but try to block me. Good. Of course, I was going easy on you.
Of course.
Let's see if you can handle that. That does it.
Anything else you want to teach us?
This is insane. Look at this. Look at the eyes. It's crazy, right? Let's go. Okay, there's Captain America, Iron Man, Black Widow. Wow, who's that new guy? That's it. I gotta go. Okay, so the great new thing is happening, right? I said I found Captain America and I stole his shield and I threw it at him. He's big now. I gotta go. It was so crazy. The Mrs. was like, hey, and I just sort of flipped in, and I stole Cap's shield. I was like, hey, you do everybody. Hey, just a second. Come in.
We have thin walls.
As you can probably tell, many of the traits Carabino portrays also fit this archetype. The immature psychic often feels insecure about his age and therefore tries to act older, but he does so mainly to impress the person he serves, while the lovesick teen is acting primarily to impress women. The immature sidekick often thinks he is more important or acts more important than he actually is. Which leads us to the most defining trait of this archetype. These kids are contentious. They want to start a fight to make themselves look good. However, no conflict means no opportunity to impress. He won't start a fight, but he'll gladly fuel the fire to draw others into conflict. After all, he is the bigger man. And what do they do to start said fight is up to the performer. Do they invade the personal space of others? Do they continue to make the same annoying gestures in hopes others will break? And what about their speech? Maybe they talk obnoxiously or speak too loudly for anyone's taste. His motivation for his contentiousness comes from two major traits. The first is whose wing he's under. With a title like Sidekick, we can infer that these characters serve an important figure. Even if the sidekick is immature, they will still present themselves as an important person despite being second in command. They might hold their head high, dress to impress, or even look down on others. And secondly, to most sidekicks, their master is their hero. They are the person giving them orders and guidance. And because sidekicks worship and idolize their master, they will often go to great lengths, not only to impress them, but to become just like them. To mimic their master's heroism and importance, sidekicks will make their gestures strong and tough, their speech more refined, their presence more commanding. However, because of their lack of maturity and their lowly status as the sidekick, this attempt will often fall short and instead appear as arrogant and egotistical, especially to older men who don't like it when a kid tries to one-up them. Which leads us to our next character, Stefano, Romeo's page. He appears at the very beginning of Act 2, helping Romeo scale a balustrade by holding a rope ladder so he can climb to see Juliet. And after Romeo successfully makes it over, Stefano takes the rope ladder and tries to escape, but is spotted by some Capulet guards. And we don't see Stefano again until Act 3, where he opens the act by singing his aria, "What Are You Doing, White Turtle Dove?" He begins by taunting the Capulets, saying that his master Romeo was at their home last night. And in some versions of the libretto, it even says that he's strumming his sword like a guitar while he's singing, as if he's just asking for a fight. And after childishly provoking them, he begins singing about a white turtle dove who is being held in a nest of vultures, and how, by love, she will eventually escape their clutches. The white turtle dove represents Juliet, while the nest of vultures hints at the house of the Capulets, where Juliet is currently. His verbiage is very schmoozy, saying that the turtle dove finds joy from amorous kisses and the lovers tell to their tenderness to the stars of the night. Now that we have the gist of Stefano's aria, there are several outside elements that need to be addressed. First, as Romeo's page, that makes Stefano a Montague. And second, do you know where he's singing this aria? He's singing it on a street right next to the Capulet's house. This kid, this Montague, really thought would be clever to taunt the Capulets on their own turf and then to do so as the lowly page boy of Romeo. And then what happens after this aria? The infamous fight between the Montagues and the Capulets. The fight that causes Romeo to be exiled and Juliet to become so desperate to see him that she drinks a sleep-like-death potion and, well, as you know, ends with the demise of Romeo and Juliet. Even though this is the only piece Stefano has, and even though he's overall a minor character, you as the performer need to treat this aria as the pivotal moment in the opera. This aria has to vex the Capulets so bad, to the point that it causes the demise of Romeo and Juliet. The performer's internal dialogue has to be so cocky and so pretentious that nothing will stop the Capulets from attacking Stefano when he finishes this aria. And that little C6 sung at the climax of this piece, that's Stefano's way of saying, "Mine's bigger than yours, Capulets." And on that note, here is Stefano's aria, "Que fais-tu, Blanche Tuttarella?" For our third character example, we move away from the young boy archetypes and move on to more mature Pantsroles. Le Prince Charmant from Massenet-Cendrillon is a serious, romantic character, and as you can probably guess from his name, I believe he fits best into the Prince Charming archetype.
So this is love. So this is love. So this is what makes life. Oh boy, what is my voice of salad? I want to see my face shining in it by morning.
As you wish.
Oh boy, I fill these with water. Please.
As you wish.
Farm better than that ketchup.
As British as I simply must have your first answer.
It would be an honor, Your Highness.
The Queen's reward will be a passionate kiss on the cheek from our king.
Good luck to you, my darling. The flower viewing reception is going over quite well. But even so, it's rather daunting to spend more time being admired than doing the admiring.
Did you hear that? Maid, find the maid that belongs to the sweet voices! Oh, you shall not prevail, Pantsrole! That maid is mine!
Oh my gosh. It's you.
Yes, it's me. And you are?
All right, let's close it up. Silence, maid! Quickly! Audit, are you in league with the wicked old hag who sent my poor Giselle to this foul place? Archie? Giselle! I've been dreaming.
Is it really a Bailey presentation without anime? I mean, I'm just saying. Now, the Prince Charming characters are not copying the men around them because they have become the men they admired in their youth. They're stronger, wiser, more refined, and have grown into themselves. No longer do they second guess how to walk, talk, and act. With the Prince specifically, his show of maturity comes from his noble birth. Most of these characters grew up in a rich household and were taught to act like gentlemen. They present themselves as honorable people by dressing sharply, and instead of leading from the hips like most male characters do, they often lead with the chest. And although their social status makes them important, their mannerisms do not come across as arrogant. Instead, their gestures are firm but comforting, strong yet tender. Princes in media are often seen offering their hand, bowing to others they respect, or gently kissing their one true love. However, despite all of these gestures having an element of vulnerability to them, that doesn't make them any less masculine. All these gestures suggest that they can be vulnerable while still showing strength and compassion. Speaking of one true love, romance is very present in this archetype. After all, he is a charming man. He dreams about love just as much as the female love interest, hoping to be completed when he finally meets her. This is his driving force as a character. He wants love more than anything and will go to great lengths to attain it. Like making every girl in the kingdom try on a shoe to find the girl he danced with at the ball. He's charming, but I never said he had to be smart. This comes to our next and most important trait for any Prince Charming. Have you ever noticed that in many Disney films and fairy tales, Prince Charming is never given a name? There's something to be said about a character who doesn't have his own name, his own identity, And that is because he was created to be whatever the female love interest wants him to be. He is quite literally the man of her dreams. And as the performer, we should ask ourselves what we look for in our significant other. What are traits you've always wanted in a partner? How have you wanted someone to hold your hand? And how have you wanted to be kissed? In a way, you as the performer get to embody the person you've always wanted to fall in love with. That being said, although the prince was crafted to be what maidens dream of, he sings his own aria about his own feelings. In Massenet Cendrillon, Prince Charming first appears in Act 2, where we see him sluggishly trudge through the halls of a court full of festivities, music, and eligible young maidens. However, after attending numerous balls, socializing with hundreds of women, and being pressured by his father to just pick anyone, he is exhausted and depressed. He is so lonely and so heartbroken that when he refuses to talk to his courtiers, they end up sending in doctors begging him to take drugs to cure his sadness, to look presentable for the next ball. And the prince still doesn't respond to them, sulking in his chambers while the doctors fuss over him until he begins his one and only aria saying, "Go." Demanding to be left alone in his sorrows, the prince, listless and lethargic in movement and tempo, mourns his broken heart, which cannot be complete without finding the love of his life. But for a small moment, he sees a glimmer of hope. He imagines what it will be like when he finally meets her, what he will say, and how he will give himself up to her. Falling to his knees, he'll say, "I am yours." And for just a brief moment, we actually get to see a glimpse of that hopeless romantic side we know is buried deep within. But once reality hits, he mourns the fact that his heart is still empty and that he will once again have to attend ball after ball, surrounded by nobles who just want him to choose someone, whether he loves them or not. And with those feelings in mind, here is Le Prince Charmant's aria, Que sans amour, printemps sans rose.
Allez, laissez-moi seul, seul.
The fourth and final archetype is quite different from all the other pantsroles. The most common types of pantsrole seen in opera are the teen boys in love, the immature page boys, and the romantic leading men. However, Prince Orlovsky from Strauss's Die Fledermaus is a one-of-a-kind, cynical gentleman who seeks amusement in his life but doubts he'll ever find it. So I thought it would be fitting to place him into the snarky gentleman archetype.
Why do you stare at that?
Well, you don't look at all like a sea captain.
I'm afraid you don't look like such a governess. If the Nazis take the war, Austria, I have no doubt in myself that you will be the entire transaction. You flatter me, Captain. Oh, how clumsy of me. And then to accuse you.
There's one thing I hate. To speak like you really must try to learn to love yourself.
So, ma'am, were you this much trouble at the Abbey?
Oh, much more so.
And where, may I ask, did they get these?
Later.
Oh, is that what you call them?
She says, is beauty all that matters? And you say, what else is there? You should write a book. How to offend women in 5 syllables or less.
Sister Elizabeth is very agreeable.
Thoroughly tolerable, I dare say. Not as well as tempt me.
My courage always rises with every attempt to intimidate me.
I know you find great enjoyment in professing opinions which are not your own.
No, I was surprised at your knowing 6 accomplished women. I never want to know what you're knowing any.
Are you so severe on your own sex?
I know.
Late night playing cards, Master Bruce. Something like that. How did you know? I believe tradition calls for hiding these up one's sleeves. Was that sarcasm? Well, teasing at best. I being uncharacteristically gentle with you, mainly because you're bleeding all over my nice clean floor. Not going to let me go to work. That is correct, Master Bruce. Until you've had proper medical attention, food, and a minimum of 8 hours bed rest. Let's just get this over with. I made chicken soup. You can eat while you're brewed, and I'll put in your stitches myself. It will be delightful, I'm sure. All right. By the way, the part about the stitches, that will be sarcasm.
As you can see, similar to Prince Charming, this archetype was most likely raised in a wealthy household and trained to be a refined individual. However, what makes him different from the noble prince is his haughtiness. Instead of his demeanor appearing charming and kind, his gestures, stance, and voice all read as snobbish. His head is held high, his clothes are always freshly pressed and stylish, and his intelligence is sharp. His gestures are always crisp and deliberate, adding to his overall polish. His arrogance adds to the level of snark he possesses. Even with all of his poise and polish, this man is not without a sense of humor. The most challenging part about playing a character with this high caliber of snark is the deadpan delivery of a joke. Your face can't smile and your body can't react. Your lack of response is part of the humor. Tying into his deadpan demeanor, this man insults others swiftly and with such skill that they wonder for a second if they've even been insulted. He's got such a refined, gentlemanly air about him that even when you've been slighted, you almost want to respond with, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. And so we meet our final character for this evening, Orlovsky, an extremely rich Russian prince who is known for hosting lavish parties at his villa where all of his guests drink until they can drink no more. However, he has one main reason for hosting these parties. He wants someone to entertain him. Our first glimpse of Orlovsky comes from the description other characters provide before he even enters the stage. They speak of his lavish villa, how he's a young, rich Russian prince, and how he's a bit eccentric, but his parties are fabulous. Even from these little snippets, the audience already has a picture of what Orlovsky should be. A handsome prince who might be a little odd, but he throws incredible parties, so who cares? And then we see Orlovsky enter for the first time in Act 2. And at first, his guests don't even recognize him. He's not at all the charming, charismatic prince they envisioned. In fact, he looks quite bored. But once they realize who he is, they begin to swarm him, attempting to entertain their stoic host, each with their own unique and sometimes bizarre way. But any time a guest tries to make him laugh, he responds the same way. Ha, ha, ha. And after one of his guests asks why he hosts these parties, he begins his aria, Chacun à son goût, a French phrase meaning each to his own taste. His catchphrase means that everyone has their own joys in life, and he's not one to judge as long as you're not bored. However, if you are bored at his party, he won't hesitate to throw you out. So have fun, or else. Throughout his aria, Orlovsky often performs scoops and slides, some that happen very quickly, and sound a little bit like hiccups. So not only do we have a very sarcastic deadpan character on our hands, but we have one who is slightly tipsy, or perhaps straight up drunk, but trying not to be. After all, he is hosting a party. If his guests won't make him laugh, maybe the alcohol will. And before I sing this last aria, if you'd like to learn more about the Trouser Role, or if you'd like to have this as a resource for a classmate, a student, or a friend who might be interested, here is the QR code for the Trouser Role Database, with over 250 arias, 100 different trouser roles, and 45 different archetypes. Although these are all pantsroles I've discovered so far, this is an ever-growing list as I seem to find more characters to add on a daily basis. So be on the lookout for more arias and characters. And lastly, but certainly not least, I would like to thank my wonderful, amazing, fantastic collaborative pianist, Megan Barth-Argo, for not only being fabulous and amazing at her job, but for also helping me discover more about these characters through the music they sing. And I would also like to thank my committee members, Dr. Scott, Professor Sanders, and Professor Golliver for giving me guidance and for inspiring me to research what I love and what I'm so passionate about. Thank you all for coming this evening, and without further ado, here is Chacun à son goût.
Nozze!